gentlemen, Arthur Emerson.
Thank you, Michael. Let me start by telling you a story, if I may. This story goes back about 85 years. It's centered in upper state New York, about 10 miles west of Hydesville on the road to Rochester, where a widow by the name of Abigail Meek owned a very old two-story inn. It's a horrible night. A lot of these in that part of the world. Rainstorm, thunder, lightning. She's just finished dinner, done the dishes, doesn't like the evening about her, and decided that what she's going to do is go sit in front of the registration desk in the front room. She's not too thrilled by the whole idea, as you can see. But she was a bit comfortable. She thought the registration desk sort of provided a barrier to the front door, and so it did. The rain didn't bother her so much as the shutter that had blown open was banging against the side of the house. It made a horrible noise. But even in the noise, she thought she heard a vehicle, and she was right. A couple of minutes later, the door burst open and two men came through the door. The one with a star on his vest showed he was a sheriff. The other one in manacles obviously was his prisoner. They're soaked. They came through the door. She's astonished, but the sheriff, having been there before, said, "I know you have 2 rooms upstairs. We'd like to have them for the night." She takes the keys to the room, takes them upstairs, opens the door to 22B, and the sheriff shoves his prisoner inside, slams the door, and turns to her and says, "Whatever happens tonight, do not open the door to 22B." Hands her the key, and she clutched it in her hand. The sheriff took the key to 21A, went down to his room, went inside, and decided to get a little sleep for the night. Abigail went back to her chair at the registration. She was on and off all night as far as drowsing, not drowsing. But during the night, she sort of mused over the fancy she had about numbering the rooms upstairs. There were only 2 rooms. As they were on the 2nd floor, she figured one should be 21, one should be 22. And the one in the front of the house should be 21A, and the one in the back should be 22B. And this pleased her. And she's sitting there mulling this over. And as she did, she thought she heard a sound. And in the doing, she was able It was faint, it was upstairs, it was far away. But listen and see if you hear it as well. Somebody upstairs screamed. She's up the staircase in a moment. Stay where you are. She's standing in front of the door. She's got the key in her hand. She's about to open the door, and she remembers what the sheriff said. Whatever you do, don't open the door. She's about to go get the sheriff. When his door comes open, he'd heard the scream as well. And therefore, he heads over to her, and they both stand there in front of 22B, and that's when they discovered their dilemma. It took 3 giant rushes to break the door, knock the latch, and look inside and find absolutely nothing. The only movement in the entire room was a little pile of ash in the middle of the floor. There's a tiny tendril of smoke just wafting its way up to the ceiling. Obviously, such situations are going to require an inquest. So the next day, the sheriff and Abigail had to go down to the city hall and tell their story, and so they did. Down she went, and the first juror, the 3 jurors were sitting here, and the first one, you know, the sheriff tells his story first about having chased this man for 30 days. He'd murdered an entire family of 6. He's been something that they've been on the run for finding for years, and finally they have him. But now they don't have him anymore. We're not quite sure why. The juror looks up to her and says, "Why, when you friend us out the door, why didn't you just unlock the door before the sheriff came?" At which point she opened her hand and showed you their dilemma.
Oh.
And the dilemma was very simple. The car key, the door key was warped beyond any usage whatsoever. She handed it to the juror. He played with it and tried to see if he could straighten it again. It didn't straighten. Handed it out to the second juror. And by this time, Abigail had had enough. She went back to the inn and had enough for the day. The third juror took a look at it. He was the one that finally put a final line to this entire story. He took the key and took a look at it. He said, well, one thing's for sure. Devil takes care of his own. That's all there is to it. All right. Let me start this over here so you can see what it looks like. How many of you in the room are aware of a little item called nitinol? Nitinol. Only costs $1 million. NASA invented it, and you're holding it in your hand. Or you will by the time it goes around the room. Let me tell you where it came from. NASA wanted to set a satellite up that had 2 solar panels. They had to open at a certain height. The bad news was the payload couldn't afford a motor. So they had to actuate something that required no motor. And that's where nitinol came from. Nitinol is an alloy of nickel and titanium, and somebody they don't want to talk about, that allows metal to change shape at a certain temperature. So that when the satellite got to where it belonged, it was at the right temperature, the wings opened up, the solar panels operated, and the vehicle was in platform. Well, in 2007, a Frenchman by the name of Yves de Merrick made a thing called Psyche. And Psyche was the first version of what you're seeing in your hand. An alloy that would change its shape by temperature. Well, the bad news was it sold for $400. The other piece of bad news was it went off too soon. You really didn't have the time to make sure the temperature was ready enough. 2 guys in Houston came across it in 2011 and made what you're holding in your hand. They call it shift. Horrible name. The key is made by freezing it. So it's been sitting in my freezer for since the day I bought it. And once you freeze it, it goes completely straight. That particular key is set for 98.6. And so all I pray for is a lady with a warm hand. Thank you. And 2 minutes, it takes about 2 minutes for it to change. Did you feel it change shape?
Yes.
Some do, some do not, and you did. And that doesn't bother me in the least. But the story's a nice one. And the reason for doing it for you tonight is rather odd. It's 1/2 of a bookend. Let me tell you what I mean. Emerson West commercially starts back 1967. That's what the original packages looked like. They were made on the kitchen table. And that's what one of them looked like. They were $5. And suddenly we were in business. 3 cards across, but the magician never touches the cards. Great idea. At least I thought so. As time went forward, things got better. We finally got to the more professional grade. That's what some of them looked like after we met Betty Jo and John Standridge, and Newman Manufacturing was actually able to put these in a better package. That was the package. The packaging was fun. Thank you. These are the first things we ever did. The script that you just saw on the key to 22B is the last thing I've ever sold. It was written last year. It was sold to a British organization that commissioned it called the British Society of Mystery Entertainers. And they paid me, thank God, for what you just suffered through, called the key to 22B. The nice part of it, I think, at the end is necessary. What the lady gets is a bent key with a key tab. And it says, a memento with thanks from Abigail Mead, Arthur Emerson. It's a nice way to end the particular operation. It's a fun story. What we're talking about is scripting. Thank God, for me, it now pays the bills. Nitinol is the first of many things we've played with. Let me talk about a couple of others. We're in the middle of a whole bunch of inventions right now that are rather fascinating. I don't know how many you've heard or seen, but we now have an electronic string. You come across it? Particular piece of string held between two posts, one of which better have electricity to it, can change its length one way or the other by pushing the remote in your pocket and supplying current up the pole to the string. This is NASA all over again. This is, once again, how NASA actuates some of the items in the capsule. Well, the magic community came across it and thought this was a great idea. Now we have a guy who's got a little wooden block and two posts and a string with a loop on each end, and the loop goes on this end and this end. But before they do, they hang a little tiny temple bell in the middle. And now he sets it there, and the bell rings whenever he wants to, because the string gets shorter and longer, depending on how you actually push the button. This is all within the last couple of years. We've also now come across a thing called talking ink. Come across that? Talking ink. The customer is given a big 2000 marker pen and an index card. And he writes on the index card on this side a number, puts it on the table. You take out your pad and you show that you're going to take the pad in a moment. And you get the pad and he's going to get what he wrote. You take the pad and you push the thing that he wrote upon to him. When you pick this up, you're looking at what he wrote. Because the ink talks through the piece of paper and is reproduced on my piece of paper. It's here, it works, it's marvelous, and it's bad news. It's bad news because we're not allowed to sell it in this country. Big 2000 pens are made in Germany and in England, but they have a component inside that is not allowed in the United States. It's probably what you used to use years ago as a cleaning fluid. And that's been banned because they found that once you heated it, it became phosgene gas, and phosgene gas is lethal. So Australia and the United States do not allow this particular chemical, and I'll pull it out of my Alzheimer's drawer 101 for you in a moment. I've got a lot of stuff shoved in my Alzheimer's 101 drawer. Carbon tetrachloride. And carbon tet is what's inside this pen. The carbon tet is such a capability that once you write on this side of the paper, put the face down, the paper put on top, if a certain type of paper is called thermal paper. It's what Derek has over there in the cash register that prints the cash receipts. And do we have a sergeant at arms here tonight?
No, sir.
Okay. Michael, it's your job. I've left a roll of it on the table, and later, sit. Good dog. No. I'll leave it with you, and if anybody likes something, tear off a yard of it and play with it if you like. Because some people say they're finding certain Sharpie pens that will now do it. If you want to play an experiment, there's the paper, play with the idea. But this ink is called now talking ink. What else? Oh, well, AT&T, God bless them. AT&T invented the blackboard. You probably saw it if you've seen David Copperfield's show. That whatever he writes on the blackboard on stage is transmitted off stage to you, and you can write it down on a piece of paper. So whatever is written on the board is transmitted electronically to him. Now we have the entire apparatus in one pen. Whatever the pen writes upon makes no difference. The pen in and of itself, when the customer writes on it, it transmits to the gentleman off stage. and he's able to tell exactly what I wrote. We're in an interesting era of invention. Used to go to a magic shop and say, what's new? They took out the next new trick and showed you the next new trick. For us, it was 8-ball or color Monte. Today, it's what I've just described. The transmitting pens now are coming on the European market at about 150 bucks. They're not expensive. Of course, you need the set. It's a transmitter. They've got to have the receiver and hire your wife sometimes to go be off stage and write down whatever was transmitted to her. But what it does is what keeps me beating myself of late. It's called scripting. You know what it is? Peter McCabe wrote a book recently called Magic Scripting. Maybe you've seen it. If you haven't, you should. What it is almost what Michael was talking about a moment ago. It's the motivation of why do you take out X, Y, or Z and do any magic with it? Any of the items we just talked about, those four. Okay, I know what it does. What the hell are you going to do with it? The key to 22B is scripting nitinol. So the script was written to fulfill a need for a prop. Well, we have enough performers out there around the world, believe it or not, who make enough money every night and burn up materials so fast. They're basically working trade shows, but their basic evening fee is $35,000. And they chew up material like mad. I have 3 customers, one in Berlin, one in Tel Aviv, and one in Amsterdam, who chew up material like this very rapidly. And so what I get is the prop from them saying, here it is, what are we going to do with it? There's no story, there's no magic, but it does this thing, and this thing ought to be adaptable to some sort of magic. And scripting is, thank God, what pays the bills of late. Go back and take a look at Peter McCabe's book and see what you think of it. There's a man in Canada, if you haven't come across Chris Taylor, at a place called TaylorImagineering.com. I spent part of the summer with him. He has the ability to take any surface whatsoever and make it a hot spot. And by that I mean, if anybody goes near that spot on the table, he knows that you were there. Okay. Now this device is such that you can put it on the back of the dry erase board. Works on the back of a dry erase board. Works on a table. It radiates about 5 inches away from the source. It goes through 2 inches of wood, so it can be under the table and transmits through the table. And of course, he wants you to buy 3 of them. Because if you do, you can have a hot spot there, there, and there, and now I know whether you picked up this one, you picked up that one, and he picked up this one. Because the reader on my side tells you who touched each one of them. The trick is called ohm, O-H-M, and if you suffer through your electrical course in physics, you understand what an ohm is. This sort of stuff is just becoming on the market in the last 5 years. We're in a fascinating new era of this sort of foolishness. One of the things that's interesting about ohm, it also will transmit through a glass of water. And the fun thing we were playing with this summer was, if anybody touches the surface of the water, you know that they've done so. Even though you can't see the tiny little pellet that's nearby. And it transmits 5 inches away. It doesn't have to be on the glass, it can be underneath the table. Underneath the table transmits to the glass transmits to the guy touching it, you know who touched it. Fun? That's where we're headed, friends. There goes the card tricks. Thank God Emerson West is gone. Any questions on scripting or where it comes from or what the hell am I talking about?
So how do you've got a prop.
Say again?
You've got a prop that one of your clients sends to you. Where do you, I mean, obviously you're going to start with the prop, but I mean, do you have any direction ahead of that as far as...
Sometimes they will tell you for whom they work.
Okay.
Leor Manor is the customer I have in Tel Aviv. Leor has a list of clients for whom he works, and he'll tell you, this is going to be done for a canned vegetable company.
Okay.
You can do anything in the way of vegetables, canned vegetables, that's on, lean it that way. If you can't, don't care, write me a script that I can do. The trick of scripting, we were talking about this earlier. The trick, if you ever want to do this yourself, is scripting. I demand that whoever I work for, free of charge, must send me either 2 videos or I must have seen them, because I must be able to write in their voice. I can't write as if it's me. I've got to write as if it's you. And I must have seen what you do on the stage, how you speak, how you work, how you handle your words and sentences to make what I'm writing something I can sell you. And that works very well. Once you learn to write in voice, you've got the thing made. But scripting is here, and if it's a fairly new field, and you get as old as I am, you can sit back at your computer and get this job done.
So it's storytelling / magic on steroids.
Say it again.
It's storytelling because you were telling a story.
Yes, yes.
That connects it with the magic
Yep.
on steroids.
Yes.
Basically.
It is. And you've got to be careful what you do with it. 22B was written for a group of people in England to whom I sold it, who are doing a thing called bizarre magic. That's their field. They're mentalists, basically, but their area is storytelling, either be it in horror or odd stories, and that's where 22B came from. Otherwise, it came from Scotch.
Yeah.
Yeah, two glasses of Scotch after dinner, and I've got the story. Sir?
Do you have any that you've written where the dialogue or the script could go 2 different ways according to an audience decision?
Oh, sure.
And do you have an example?
And a lot of scripts are both to go, but you must remember that the performer pretty well tells you what he wants out of it before he hands you the prop. I've got some props that are useless. They're marvelous, but they're useless. I sell them to Derek for 50% of retail just to get him out of the house. There's a light bulb that goes on and off. It's the dumbest thing you've ever seen, and he was happy to have it, and I was happy to get paid for it, because part of my fee was that I get the prop. And the thing does nothing. It certainly did nothing for the customers that I work for. They do not see any way that, so the light bulb goes on and off. Who cares? Amadeo, if you're old enough to remember him, did a marvelous act where he would walk into any room at any time, unscrew any light bulb whatsoever, put in his hand and light the bulb. And you can do it. It's very simple to do. The problem is we don't have many B batteries anymore, because that's what ran radios years ago. And a B battery will light any light bulb in God's world. So he had the B battery in his pocket, and the light fixture went down his arm. All he had to do was grab any bulb in the world, touch the wire to the bottom of it, the damn thing lit. Didn't light long. Only lit about 30 seconds, and he better quit. But he's done it. He took it around the world. It was a great trick. So why go through all this foolishness of boxes and gadgets that cost hundreds of dollars when all you really need to do is figure out reductio ad absurdum. Get down to what the simplest, easiest way of getting the job done is, and use it if you can make it work for you. Have we beaten this to death? I have other subjects we can beat to death, but this is just the first one.
Beat to the next one.
3 of you were very kind to have sent me emails on what they'd like to hear about tonight. Let me get rid of one of them quickly. I'm in my 85th year. I had my annual physical in December. All the parts I came with are still working except for 2. Fingers don't work with a damn. Same problem that Vernon had. He used to carry glycerin and rose water with him to give him some purchase, because he was so dry in his skin at our age that he couldn't. I can't do a multiple push-up anymore. Impossible. So Larry Kuhn. Anybody remember Larry? He was a jeweler here in Dallas for a number of years. Lives up in Gainesville now. He said, Arthur, there's a very simple, brand new product that's just the thing for you. What you use is KY jelly. Well, you now find the magician standing in the sanitary aisle at the local supermarket, quickly buying their KY jelly to use on your finger, and it works just fine. The bad news is it only lasts about 20 minutes, but then again, As I recall, 30 years ago, it only ran about 20 minutes then. It'd be that's neither here nor there.
At least it's
One of the
consistent.
problems with health is I was in Blackpool, England in 2012, going to the convention. I had worked for 22 years. But now I can go and see it, because as a dealer, I was always behind the booth, because it was the highest paid convention I could work for. I paid myself by the hour. I was at the end of the day, how many hours did I work and how much money did I make? That's what I paid myself for. That's how I worked. So now I can go and see the convention, because I've not seen it for some 16 of the 20 odd years. I'm coming down the staircase in the morning, someone calls me, I missed the last 2 steps, fell flat, and you have a little thing called a quadriatic muscle between your knee and your hip, and I tore it right in half. So the hobble that you see me doing back and forth at the table is, after 14 months of physical therapy, it didn't work. The right leg goes 32 inches forward, the left leg goes 36 inches forward, and I hobble. Now they told me as I got older, I would go through second childhood. They didn't tell me I was going to have to learn how to walk all over again. But that's how it turned out. So much for health. Somebody asked me if there were any rules for magic as far as I was concerned. There are. See if any of these strike you. They came from different sources, different people in my lifetime. The audience should never know when the trick starts. The worst lines belong to my partner. Let me show you a trick. Okay, I'm sorry. What that does is puts the audience on guard. It now becomes a challenge. And let's talk about challenges just for a quick second. A father and son in France go to a magic show. A father and son in America go to a magic show. The father and son in France, he tells the boy, this is going to be a wondrous performance tonight, you're going to love it. We'll sit there, we'll enjoy the wonders of the performance, and they do. They watch the magic happen and they have a grand evening. The American father and son go to a magic show. 2 seconds in, the son says, how's it done? Which is where we invented a very famous phrase called, it's up his sleeve. True or not, it's up his sleeve. So the kid ends up castrating his father for the next 2 hours, challenging father to tell him how things are done, because to him it's a puzzle. It's something that's got to be pushed and done. The enjoyment factor really is not in the wonder what's going on stage. So we're greatly 2 different audiences. So once I finally take Emerson West overseas, I had to change the pitch all over again. It didn't fit their audience. Well, thank God it finally sold, but everything that you've ever seen of my junk has a script that works in this country, back to your comment, and one that fits on their country. And I got a kick. I worked the FISM convention in 1976 in Vienna, Austria. And this gentleman walks up and says, I appreciate that you've done Gypsy Curse in German. And I learned it in German, it killed me. So I did it in German. He says, can you do the American version now so I can understand it? Which tells you something about my German. So I then proceeded to show him Gypsy Curse as God wrote it. And but don't ever tell an audience when the thing, if your conversation doesn't lead you into it, don't do it. But once you make it look like it just came along as a happenstance, their fun of watching the wonder is much better, much more. The biggest fight I ever had with my partner. Now, if you're going to have a partner in a business, pick a genius. And I did. And Larry West was the genius. He loved to practice, he loved cards, and he had a mind that knew where every card was in the deck at any time. Shuffle the deck, where's the 4 of hearts, 15th down. And he was right every time. Okay. The other thing he could do was take the sleights out of a trick. Let me tell you about a young man we met in Columbus, Ohio. He's 18 years of age, he walks to the door, and he's going to show us a trick, and we solicited anybody that had a trick that we could put on the market, okay? And this comes there, and he does a marvelous trick. The bad news is the first move of the trick is a double lift two of them done simultaneously at the very beginning. A double lift followed by a double lift and take the hand away. He's holding a double in his right and the talon in his left. Nobody in God's world is going to practice and get this thing done. It's not going to sell worth a damn. So I'm letting the kid down slowly, and we thank you for coming in and really for bringing us the trick. And I'm doing a violin solo out front, and my partner did his best thinking on the throne. He's in the bathroom, and suddenly this voice comes out of the bathroom and says, "Don't let the kid out of the room." And what he has done is remove every sleight from the entire trick. So if anybody could do it without sleight of hand. We sold 35,000 of it. It was called Flipped Out. And it was a marvelous piece of magic, which was initially impossible to do. This was Larry West. But Larry didn't know when to quit, God bless him. And if you watch carefully, and now as you can see, all the cards are red. On the other side, all the cards are blue. On the other side, all the cards are pink. He loved kickers. He loved to have a kicker on the end of every trick. And one night, he and I were working at the Magic Castle, and Vernon says, "That's the dumbest goddamn thing I've ever seen." I said, "Why?" If the trick is good enough, that the ending should be able to handle it, and that's it. We don't need another ending, and another ending, and another ending. If it's ended and it's good, that's it. Stop, quit. Knock these kickers off the end of your trick. You don't need a second ending on a trick. If it doesn't strong enough to do as it is, take it out of your program. He never believed me. Stop proving negatives. Now, there are negatives that are built in. You lead the guy down a primrose path and to think that the card is red and it's actually blue. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a trick whereby you show the deck, it's not on top and it's not on the bottom. I don't care where it's not. Why are you proving negatives? Stop it. The trick should be a direct line between here's the premise, here's where I'm headed, and there's the ending. 1, 2, and 3. I don't need 4 and 5, and I don't need something along the way. Make your tricks go as direct lines and cut them shorter. There, you know, Hollywood has this problem today. Why do we need a 2-hour and 45-minute movie? To sell more popcorn, I know. All right. Blocking versus sleights. Well, you brought that up a couple of seconds ago with the French drop. I'm sorry, I have never considered myself to be a good magician. My sleight of hand is slight, S-L-I-G-H-T. Very slight. And anytime I can get away with not doing a sleight, my kind of magic. So I spend my time taking sleights out of the trick and making them a matter of blocking. In that regard, play with this thought, that you want to start dirty and end clean. Any trick you've got starts early and ends clean. Let me prove it to you. There are wheels on those chairs. You know, everybody in the room is a magician of different variety. Amateurs, professional, semi-professional, and you all realize that there are different varieties audiences. They come with preconceived notions. They're pretty sure that they know, before you ever start, what they can do, how to do it. They know what you're doing more than you do. They think that a magician should never shuffle the deck face up, because you can see the name of the cards. Magicians damn well know that whether the cards are face up or face down. Magicians know the names of the cards from the back as well as from the front. Nothing to it. As I go through this deck, for example, I can go down through these cards and you'll find out that there's the 8 of hearts. There's nothing to this town. It's very, very simple. In just a moment, I'm going to need your assistance, if you don't mind. And what I'm going to do is spread half these cards across the table. and ask Bill to step up in just a moment, because I'm going to fan all the cards toward Bill, all right? I'm going to ask him to take out any card he likes, show it to you so I can't see it, and then take the card, put it in here, and schmooze it around so I can't tell where it goes. Now, schmoozing is a technical term of actually pushing it somewhere where I can't see where you put it in. Fair enough? Okay? All right. What I'd like to have you do, let me make as big a fan as I can make, Bill. Step up, take a card out. Don't show it to anybody. You got one? All right. Now, let me turn around while you go ahead. Show it to the audience. And then, if you understand schmoozing,
I got it.
okay, go ahead and schmooze. When you're through schmoozing, tell me.
Through.
Through
I'm
schmoozing.
schmoozed.
Thank you. All right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's a card in the deck that tells me the name of chosen cards. Why go through sleight of hand? But you can just sit there and let the deck do the work for you. That particular card, in this case, is the Joker. So let me find the Joker and I'll show you how it works. Joker must be in your half of the deck. Let me use the Queen of Hearts. She taught the Joker everything he knows anyway. Okay. Let's push all yours together. Put yours in the middle of mine. Give the Queen of Hearts a quick look at the cards, and she will name the card you chose. I'm going to need a little more help. Would you make your mind go completely blank and think only of the card you took? Got it? It's a red card. It's a heart. Only 13 of them. I think we've got it. Would you be good enough to tell me the card you chose?
4 of Hearts.
4 of Hearts. Ladies and gentlemen, the 4 of Hearts. I've got a confession to make. In all fairness, the Queen did not tell me the name of your card. Remember a moment ago I asked you to make your entire mind go blank? That's when it happened. And you leave the deck of cards on the table and you walk out. They're all blank. All right. This was sort of fun. It's called Pale Face Pasteboards. It was invented by my guy named Horace Bennett. And it's a lovely piece of deception for the simple reason that it spends the entire presentation in trying to make you believe he's got a full deck of cards. My God, you're flashing cards all the way through this trash. Until you get to this. Now, back when Casa Manana had any money, I got hired to, at the end of the evening, entertain the people who were in the show. We go to the green room, you get them a drink, you get them a sandwich, and they send them off to their hotel for bedtime. And if you've ever worked the bass, you know where the green room is, you've got a two-tiered situation there. The second tier, I set up, and it worked no more than 15 minutes, because they're all tired, they're gonna go home. This is the closer every night. Because you take the deck, you leave the deck on the table, you take up your coat, and you walk out the door. I must have bought 144 decks of blank-faced cards, but I was very happy because Paul Beard kept hiring me. Thank God for small favors. If you don't understand pale-faced pasteboards, I'm glad to teach it to you later, but not now. Let's go on to something else. Somebody wanted to know about the start of Emerson West. God knows why. I come back from England in 1967, and the Army is very odd. When Korea was hot and the draft was chasing me down the road, I decided it was better to enlist than to get hauled in. I'd rather have an RA serial number than a US serial number. So I enlisted on a gimmick that I thought I had it made. There was a little known law that you could enlist to go to OCS. And if you made it, you were commissioned. And if you didn't make it, you were discharged. I got it made. I'm out of here. I'm managing a theater in Boston. I have no interest whatsoever in the military whatsoever. Be careful of God. God has a sense of humor. I went through basic training, went through sergeant school, went to OCS, and fell in love with the military, stayed 20 years and 23 days, took the money and ran. So we got to see a lot of the military and thoroughly enjoyed it. Didn't do much magic, but I wrote it down. I filled 2 journals full of crappy ideas, which later years became Emerson and West. So the stuff was written down, but nothing was really done with it. I get back in 1967, and the Army has an odd gimmick. When you come out of OCS, you're commissioned as second lieutenant in the United States Army Reserve, USAR, not the Army of the United States. Did you know we got 2 armies? We got 2 armies. Those who go to West Point, or number 1 in their ROTC class, are United States Army. All the rest of us dogs are United States Army Reserve. In the 17th year of your service, they come to you and say, Colonel, you got a choice to make. If you'll sign up for another 10 years, past your 20-year retirement, we'll convert you from USAR to RA. And that by that time, as long as you don't get shot up somewhere along the way, you'll make Brigadier General and can run the elevator in the Pentagon. Okay? You want to have a long conversation with your wife over the kitchen table, talk about that particular evening. We decided to take 20 years and get out. I would be 42 at that time, and it's time to go off and try a business of my own. Now you've got to be very delicate about the next line. I want you to picture sitting around the kitchen table when you suddenly tell your wife, who's been with you for 20 years in the military, that you're going to go back into magic. Thank God the poor lady did not faint. She said, really? 3 times. Well, it came about. IBM Ring 50 is in Washington, D.C. SAM Assembly Number 23 is in Washington, D.C. And I was a member of both, and so was Larry West. Larry West was a program director of Voice of America. That's where he came from. He'd been in magic almost all his life, as had I. And we were exact opposites. The only other pair of men I know in my lifetime that were this way were Gilbert and Sullivan. They hated each other. We didn't. But Larry loved Hawaiian shirts, drank bourbon, practiced all day long, could drink like a fish. I always had a black whatever, had a tie, drank scotch, and could not drink like a fish. And we started playing around with ideas. And the first one was a guy named Jim Temple. Jim Temple was a CIA agent, and he had been in Munich, Germany. And some say he borrowed a routine from a magician called Peki, P-E-K-I. And that the original idea for Color Monte was his. So Jim Temple shows it to us, and it does what it does. The red, the blue, it ends up with the green, big deal. And back to you again. It has no motivation, it has no story, it has nothing at all. All my life I've done nothing more than be a storyteller. I've been doing scripting for 40 years and didn't know it. Because if you take a look at any of the Emerson West tricks, they're all stories. West did all the heavy card work. He was the clever one. I just wrote the bloody stories. And we therefore got along just beautifully. The nice part was we believed each other in completely. Whatever he thought was the way to do the sleight of hand, I could not have agreed with more. And when I told him the proper line for the trick was that so-and-so, he would agree as well. I don't think we ever fought in 30 years. Another thank God for small favors. Well, when you start off on a thing like that, before Emerson and West, I was in England in the 1960s and got introduced at the Magic Circle. Hooray. I've never seen a group of men in my entire life that would sit down and give each other whatever knowledge they had and other methods they had, whatever tricks they had, and just give them away and play with them. Go ahead. And they would get together once, they'd meet every Monday night. They still meet every Monday night. And on Sunday afternoon, a guy named Tony Corinda was living in a, of all things, a nunnery, which he bought in northern England. And 3 of us were invited to come over for lunch. Okay. It's a Sunday afternoon, and we get there, and he opens the refrigerator door, and inside the refrigerator are 4 turkeys. Out comes one, out comes the carving knife. We carve up the turkeys, and we sit on the floor and talk about card tricks, or mentalism, or whatever. One of the gentlemen there has just invented a very marvelous idea of a rising card. And the rising card came sitting on that carpet with this little weight that went up and down on a string back inside the deck, and you know the deck already. Marvelous stuff being done and just exchanged. So I started showing the kind of stuff that I had written down in the book. My favorite was something called encased in glass. It's the first trick I ever sold. Drinking glass, tumbler, face down on the table, handkerchief over the top, grab the top, push the corners together, you hold the corners at the top. You take a card out of the deck, you put it back in, and immediately it's gone. Turn the deck over, count through 51 cards, it's not there. Grab the glass, the handkerchief unfolds, and there's the card inside the glass. Encased in glass. Great trick, I thought. I had to, I invented it. So, Edwin Hooper was a greengrocer. Greengrocers in England are the man that has a little truck that comes around right after your dairyman leaves the milk at the stoop of your house. He comes along and sells you the cabbages and the spinach and so forth off the back of his truck. And he really wanted to get out of the business, so he's going to open a thing called Supreme Magic out in Devonshire, and that's exactly what he did. And he says, Arthur, and he stuttered. I'd like to buy the trick. Okay, how can we do it? He says, well, I don't like the title. Okay, fine, not gonna break my heart. We came to a monetary agreement. He called it Materialize, and you will find it in his catalog. It was the very first piece of magic I ever sold. Anybody here a fisherman? I was hooked. I was hooked. From there on in, we played with the one-man, two-person dictionary test. We played with Insight, which was a pen, mind reader's pen. And I had a whole bunch of this stuff was all my own. Now, back to Larry West. Larry West had a partner by the name of Vern Chesborough. Unfortunately, Vern had a stroke very young in life and ends up in a home for 11 years. And he wasn't always cogent. He was sometimes with us and sometimes he wasn't with us. But anytime he was with us, he'd look at the wife and says, don't sell the magic. And he'd go back to being out of it. So all the things that Larry West and Vern Chesborough invented together, tricks you can count on, ultimate card separation of 1 and 2, have never been put out by Emerson and West. Larry kept them to himself. He and Vern had done those. We never touched them. But this thing that Jim Temple brought along needed a story. And there's a young man in the audience who was an illustrator for the Washington Post. His name was Roger Lindsay. And I said, Roger, we need a picture of a guy with a whole bunch of money in front of him in green. Can you draw that for me? And that's where the story of Color Monte began. Because now we've got an ending. We got the guy that comes to the fair every year, does the little magic and shows you the trick, and ends up with you owe me $14. We paid Roger $50 for the drawing, and we paid Jim Temple $50 as well. We sold 50,000 copies of Color Monte over the years, and probably the highest selling card trick in history. Because anybody could do it. It had damn near no sleight of hand. You did a double lift or multiple push-off, the trick was over. And it sold extremely well, thank God for small papers. The second trick we put on the market was called 8-ball. Anybody ever see it? One or two of you, all right. 8-ball is thanks to a Japanese magician called Shigeya Futagawa, who figured out how to take a bunch of cards that appear to be blank, turn them over and deal one, 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 turn them over and deal, and they all appear blank. Except the last one, which has an 8-ball printed upon it. And you put the 8-ball in amongst the others, you mix the cards, and you ask the spectator if he can find out where the 8-ball is, and he says it's there, and they are right. They're always right. Very good. You did so well the first time, would you mind trying it again? Hide the 8-ball, face down, face down, face down, face down, face down, five, and 2 columns of 3. Which column do you want? This one. How about this one? Those 2. How about this one here? That's the 8-ball. Pick it up, and it's a blank on both sides. That's a shame. Could have sworn that if you had the 8-ball the first time, you should be able to find it the second time. And I don't understand why you didn't, because you see these are all 8-balls. And all the other cards are 8-balls. So we're doing this little thing, and you've got to realize, did we have a business plan? And I'm going through this horseshit to tell you, yes, we did. And we put out 3 tricks a year. One has no sleights. One has 1 sleight. And this one is called Oh My God. All right? So the guy walks up to your booth, and I said, really, good to see you again. You bought a trick from us last year. Yeah. What did you buy? And he now tells you what he bought, and you now know which one of the 3, you know where he belongs. And this is the beginning of a business plan. Knowing what to sell, taking a reduced amount. Don Lawton, who bought Bev Bergeron's Townhouse Magic years later, would go to a convention with only 3 tricks per day. The next day he had 3 different tricks. No, I'm sorry, we don't have the other 3. Go to the catalog. Following day he had 3 different tricks, but not the first 6. And he wouldn't sell you the first 6. He kept you from. So by the time you've seen Don Lawton about 3 times at a convention, you damn well bought it the first day because you're not going to see it again. Business plan. Very fine. I got to tuck that one away. So we slowly began a business plan. The first guy that ever told us what we were doing wrong was Phil Thomas. Phil Thomas owned Yogi Magic Shop in Baltimore, Maryland. Denny and Lee run it today. We're demonstrating at Columbus Magi Fest, and Bill comes over and says, you guys are very clever. You got one big problem. I said, what's that? He says, you don't know when to stop and take money. You're so enamored doing tricks that you forget this is a business. Another one for the business plan. All right? Know when to stop. How to move a tip. And we did. And we thoroughly enjoyed doing so. The business plan ended up being such that we decided we never wanted to be a retailer. And I have great troubles with all my friends who are retailers. I could not see selling things by the 1. At a minimum, we sold them by the 12. To the wholesalers, we sold them by the 1,000. And believe me, you can sell 1,000 of the worst trick in the world, and I have 2 of them, and there are the worst tricks in the world. One is called cutoff. It is not only bad, it is absolutely dreadful. We sold 1,000 of the damn things. I never even want to see it again. It is awful. Where the customer cuts the 4 aces by himself out of a deck. Bad. Really bad. People who are sitting in magic today at times forget the purpose of selling magic. It is not to show you how clever the next trick is. They've forgotten the first sale that every salesman in this room understands. You don't sell the trick, you sell the benefit. In your hands, here's what you can do with this trick. This will make it so that you can do something. The pitch of the demonstrator is that this is something that is suited to you. Won't work for you at all, sir. I'm sorry, we'll do something with you later. And you pitch him, this is something He's got to have it in his repertoire because it fits who he is and what he does. And once you figure out how to do that, you're on the road. You know the old joke about how to make $2 million as a magician. You start with $1 million. You start with $3 million and get down to 2. Learning how to sell was sort of fun, but a lot of magicians don't know who they are. I decided long ago I want to be a demonstrator, and they all said, "You want to be a what?" I want to be a demonstrator. I know how to work a table. I know how to sell. We invented all the crap on the table, and that's what I want to do. And I said, well, I hope you enjoy yourself, and I hope you can make a little money. And we didn't, but 8 Ball changed everything. 8 Ball had a man walk over to the table one day, and this gentleman walks up and says, "Where do you get the cards?" I said, "I'm sorry, we have a factory in Mesquite, Texas, and we print our own." He said, "Oh, do you really? Can you put anything on the card beside that 8 Ball?" I said, "Sure." He said, "You know, I worked for Coca-Cola, and you know, we have a logo which is a little circle like a little yin-yang. You go back that far in Coca-Cola. And can you print that on the card for me?" I said, "Sure, no problem." "How many can you turn out?" I said, "Well, we print by the 1,000. "Really?" We had a 5-head Webendorfer press, and the only trouble with it was by the time you threw the switch on and off, you'd print 1,000. You couldn't print 500. The damn press did 1,000 in one throw of the switch. So he says, "Well, let me come and talk to you." 30 days later, he's back to me and he says, "Mr. Emerson, we'd like to order 25,000 copies of your 8 Ball trick with the Coca-Cola logo on it." We had never even seen the business side of magic. Never even dawned on us. How dumb can you be? We were. So we took the 25,000 and we printed it up, shipped them to him. He's on the phone again. He says, "Okay, fine. We'll pay you for the 25,000. Now, the other thing we want to pay you for is to come over and teach it to our salesman. Because this is going to be a salesman's giveaway because there's no sleight of hand. It's a layout. You just do it. If you can read the bloody instructions, the trick does it itself. Perfect salesman's giveaway. He walks into the place, shows the trick, gives it to the retailer and says, "Yeah, it's yours, it's your trick." So come over to Atlanta and teach the guys how to do the trick. Second paycheck. Atlanta, Larry West and I go and we sat and we suffered through people who could not figure how to turn the cards over and lay one down. Turn the cards over and lay one down. I'm sorry, that is so inherent to those of us in the room. We spent 30 minutes on phone rings again in another 30 days. "Mr. Emerson, can you and Larry be at a trade show for us?" Third paycheck, one trick. So we went and did our first trade show. Now, you can understand, Larry loved trade shows. I hated them. I like conventions because I'm a salesman. He didn't like to sell behind the booth because he wouldn't stop doing it. Now it's red and now it's blue and now it's pink. So once again, we get along beautifully, but we split the audience down the middle. So we go and do the trade show, and we're both doing it. And you know, the purpose of a trade show is to draw people to the booth. Now the bad news is, if you're good, you're lousy. Because if you're good, you can't get rid of the tip in front of the booth. They'll stay there till hell freezes over because you're good. And they want to see you do some more. And you've got to learn how to, what is known in the trade is move the tip. It's an old Carney expression, but the tip are the people out front, and you've got to move them along. And the next thing I feel is a tap on my shoulder that says, "You finally got the goddamn idea, don't you?" I said, "Yep, we just moved the tip for you. You got a brand new crowd out front, we'll go ahead and work them." So West goes off first. He comes back, he says, "You know, tonight we're going to take the kid with the Cokes to dinner." "Why are we going to do that?" He says, "I'll take the booth, you go over and watch him." So these people are all taking their little cards over there, and I'm standing at the back of the line. They have the card. They get their Coke, and the kid takes the card, tears it down, throws it in the trash. We took him to dinner. I don't care how big a steak he wanted. We take him to dinner. He tore every bloody card in half, and therefore we sold them all over again. So much the story of 8 Ball. Where are we in time? I've got one trick I want to give you before we go home. How many of you here work from a memorized deck of cards? 1, 2. Looking for 3. 3, thank you, sir. Right. All right. Would you like to have a memorized deck of cards that doesn't require any memorization?
Oh, yes.
I want to give you one tonight as a gift. The inventor was a man who spent his first 60 years as the radio program director for the British Broadcasting Company. His name is Lewis Jones. And Lewis Jones decided to retire and take up his hobby, and the very first thing that he wrote, he gave to us to print. It was called the memory deck. And therefore I've printed for you to take home with you the instructions for the whole deck. But let me tell you what it's capable of doing and why you really don't need to memorize anything. Michael, here's where you come in. There are the instructions, and when we're through, if you'll give everyone one, they then have scratch paper. All right. There are 2 things you must remember. They should not challenge you too badly. 2, 4, 6, 8. That's it. 2, 4, 6, 8. Clubs, hearts, spades, diamonds. 2, 4, 6, 8. Clubs, hearts, spades, diamonds. Everything that's on the position in this deck of cards that ends in 2 is a club. The 2nd, the 12th, the 22nd, the 32nd, the 42nd, the 52nd. 52nd is a club. See? 2, 4, 6, 8. Every card in this deck that ends in 4 is a heart. The 4th, the 14th, the 24th, the 34th, the 44th. Ain't no 54th. So the entire deck is dependent upon the suit. Now I'll tell you where you will go astray with the deck because you're going to do the easy part first and forget to do the more difficult, if there is such a thing. Second, go for the suit first, not the value. First, find the suit. The guy says, I want 12. You know it's a club, and guess what? It's a 3 o'clock because 2 and 1 makes 3. That's how the deck works. All you do is add the numbers together. 24th card, 4 tells you it's a heart. 2 and 4 are 6 of hearts, the 24th card in this deck.
Oh,
You don't have to memorize anything there, do you, friends? You just add the 2 numbers together everywhere. 52nd card. If it ends in a 2, it must be a 5 and 2 are. There it is. Now, what do you do about the other numbers? Well, very simple. Give me a number, he says. 23. I'm going to deal 23 cards off and see what's hidden underneath it. I'll get you to the even numbers whether it kills me. All right? So we're going to push aside any odd number you give as an elimination and use the next card. You've been doing that for years, nothing new. All right? That's the memory deck. Now, the only thing that I've left out is 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. The hell are they? You'll love this. Ace, 2, 3, 4, and 5 of spades. 10 is the ace, 20 is the 2, 30 is the 3, 40 is the 4, 5 is the 50th card of this deck. 5 of spades. So all the ones that end in 0 are the ace through 5 of spades. That's all there is to the deck. It's the most useful thing I've ever had because as my memory fails, and believe me, when you get to 85, and try to figure out where your keys are for the card. Least of all, what the 36th card is in the deck. What is it?
Nine of spades.
9 of spades. You're there. All right. There's a copy for each of you. For myself, I want to say thank you. I've enjoyed the evening, and I hope you have as well. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Michael.
Does anybody have a